Yes. Hello, welcome to the core webinar today. Today's topic is decentering whiteness in the classroom, and I am honored to introduce our staff in CSD, Laura Lawrence. She is an ECE, early childhood educator, and she's here with us and has been with us for the last 6 years, but she has had 20 years of ECE experience in the field. She is passionate about supporting teachers and best serving the BIPOC deaf students within the classroom. And we are excited to learn to be more aware and how we can decenter whiteness in the classroom. And Laura is going to share her perspective and her experiences. Welcome. Thank you. Hello, I'm Laura Lawrence. I'm the infant toddler teacher here at CSD, and thank you for joining the webinar today. I hope that I can offer you a very unique tool to provide strategies for you to be able to support and encourage your BIPOC student within the classroom by decentering whiteness and focusing on all the students. First, I would like to do a little acknowledgement. I recognize that I work and live in the land of the Ohlone people, Muwakima Ohlone people. We are on the indigenous land. I have an image here of a mural from San Jose, and the mural artist is Alonso Salazar. If you notice in the image, they have the words, "We are still here," in the indigenous language, Makin Mak Nomo. We are still here, and it's important that we remember that the indigenous people that are here, they're surviving and thriving and continuing to inspire us through the arts. And this workshop is related to the topic to understand BIPOC people, indigenous people, and Black people. We are here and we deserve to have representation. And we want you to remember that. I'd like to discuss what this webinar is intended for. And it's not for the students, I'm sorry, it's for the teachers. And, actually, we are lifelong learners, but this webinar is for all teachers. It doesn't matter what race you are. For white teachers, I hope that you will become more aware of your impact, the choices that you make in your classroom, and how that will impact your students, and how it will impact your students' family and impact your colleagues as well. Your choices are very powerful. for BIPOC teachers, for Black teachers, for Indigenous teachers. You may be encouraged, recognized, validated, and you may use this as permission to push for more representation in your schools. Let me adjust the screen a little bit here. Decentering whiteness. What does this mean? As teachers, it will mean intentionally creating a safe learning context where Black, Indigenous, and other BIPOC students, as well as Asian, Latinx students, for them to be recognized. How to decenter whiteness? One of the strategies to decenter whiteness is recognizing them by the choices that you make in your curriculum. How you represent the BIPOC individuals in your classroom. Often we focus on BIPOC students. They have needs, but white students also have needs, and they need to recognize and be able to see images of BIPOC images. Because without them, they're missing so much. And they're lacking those opportunities to meet different people. They're missing opportunities to have successful relationships with BIPOC individuals, and missing the opportunities to learn from BIPOC people. If your classroom doesn't have enough representation, or they may have the misconception of what the world is like, this will limit their opportunity out in the world. How do we decenter whiteness? Conscious decision-making regarding curriculum choices, increasing racial representation of BIPOC people, and third, it's important to have an ongoing reflective process. Do a little soul searching as well. I want to make sure that it's clear that the term BIPOC, what does that mean? BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. Other people of color includes Asian, Latinx, and Pacific Islander. Black people and Indigenous people, that term BIPOC acronym emphasizes on Black and Indigenous people. And because of the history of Black Indigenous people of this country is very unique in regards to building the foundation of this country and the kinds of the things that are against Blacks, the injustice against Indigenous people, and the types of oppression that they have encountered. Oh, we're having some technical issues. I apologize. Understanding the anti-Black racism. It is pervasive, and the foundations of anti-Black racism is systemic denial of Black humanity and Black dignity. And how does this happen? It's been overlooked, it has been denied, and it has been ignored towards Black people through beliefs, attitudes, actions, practices, behaviors of individuals and institutions as well. They devalue, minimize, marginalize the full participation of Black people of African descent. First, I'd like to talk about how white-centered shows up in the classroom in the ECE program. We've seen them in books. Teachers will select a book, and oftentimes the books that are selected do not represent Black, Indigenous, or BIPOC individuals. The book itself erases us. And I will go in a little detail about the choices of book that would be preferred in the classroom. BIPOC people are not seen. We do not see Black people. We do not see BIPOC people within the classroom. They're seen, but not enough exposure. The understanding and the awareness depends on your school, which is understandable, but at the same time, I think there's about 80% of teachers are white women. I can assume that many children have situations in their school. Possibly they are BIPOC themselves, Indigenous, or Black students that may have white teachers. And most often have white teachers historically, which is minimum 80% of the times. 80% of white teachers, and many of the students will experience that in their life and probably have never had the experience of having a BIPOC teacher. I am the first Black teacher in a college. I had my own experiences growing up. My first Black teacher I met was in college. Actually, well, maybe I'm lying a little bit. I had one Black teacher in 5th grade. It was a PE teacher. And it meant so much to me to see that. So those are the things to think about. There's not enough BIPOC role models within the educational system. There's not enough BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people that have positions of power within the school system. The racialized treatment with BIPOC students, we see often and over white teachers being overly strict. And maybe in the ECE department, we do try to redirect children, and we're able to be physically, we can be physical with those younger children because they are young. But of course, in a positive sense. But it's very important that we take great care and respect the agency of the body for all children, regardless, especially at the ages of 5 or younger, that we respect their agency. It's so easy to overlook that and say, oh, well, they're young. Well, I can just pick them up. It's not a problem. And it's worse if you're upset or if you're frustrated with the child. Of course, teachers become upset. we get frustrated, and we are very skilled at stuffing those feelings away. But it's important to recognize, to not to show that frustration or being done with that student, being careful with your own body and their bodies, and to be gentle with them. This also includes being very overcritical of a child. If the child may not meet the expectations, it's important not to criticize that child because it's maybe a skill that they have not learned yet. And last, a BIPOC student may not see themselves within the classroom. They don't see themselves in books that the teachers may choose. They don't see themselves in the curriculums that the teachers use within the classroom. They don't recognize their strengths. They don't see their own beauty, their intelligence, or their talents. All in all, often the BIPOC students will experience erasure within the classroom. I have a picture of a book, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And this book is an example of erasing BIPOC, Black, Indigenous students, because they are not represented in this book. Your students may sit there during storytelling and feel, maybe I'm not that important. That's why I'm not being represented. To decenter whiteness and broaden your perspectives, putting emphasis on Black and Indigenous students, the benefits for you and for your students. You all students will have an opportunity to see what the world is like, and not just from a white individual's perspective, which is inaccurate. A white individual, but more of a whiteness. And I want to make a correction that it's not just a white individual perspective and their own reality. What I meant was the whiteness is all around. It's in books, it's in signages, it's in toys, in toy stores. It's all around. And that is widely accepted perspective of whiteness, which is not accurate. It is a made-up world view. It's a made-up reality. If we decenter whiteness and recenter diversity, we can include we can include the marginalized groups. Understanding And we need to decenter whiteness so that we can have more space and more focus on the BIPOC students. Practicing recentering on diversity, highlighting Blackness, being Black-centered, centering Blackness, making choices, and accepting responsibility for your choices as well. Your choices do have an impact. And last, the benefits. I mean, there's a lot more benefits, but these are the 4 that I'm focusing on. Is highlighting Blackness, celebrating melanin, which creates space for everyone. As a teacher, you will have a new experience. It will help you to be thoughtful in that process to help your students. Of course, we want to have the best practice for ECE. My focus is on race, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the only thing that teachers will be focusing on in the classroom. Of course, we need to consider what are the best practices in their early childhood education, the best pedagogy, bilingual education for deaf children, what's developmentally appropriate practice, but including decentering whiteness, which is the best practice as well. Sign language. Sign to sign is to be human. ASL is a human right. In other countries, signing is a human right for deaf children and deaf people. And as a teacher of the deaf, I always have to be mindful that I never focus on anything else but language and accessibility language and the opportunities for students to be able to access language. As a hearing person, I need to focus on that and making sure that the deaf children do have access. Today, in my webinar, I want to make sure that you understand that this is very important, that we provide sign language for access for your students. They need to be interconnected, as well as racial awareness. Understanding that deaf children have rights to sign. And at the same time, all deaf children have a right to be free from racial harm. They need to be interconnected. If we choose, okay, let's choosing something, for example, and that causes racial harm, that is definitely something that you cannot choose. If you find something which blocks access to the child, for example, captioning or language access for the child, then it's something that we can't use. So we need to make sure that we make different choices. If you see, and again, I'd like to repeat this is very important. If the curriculum and the materials causes racial harm, do not use it, period. If the curriculum and the materials prevent language access, does not permit access to language, signed language, don't use it. It seems very simple, but unfortunately, it's not happening. They need to be interconnected, and those two are very important. I will be explaining exactly the tool and the strategies and the specifics, but I'm just going to give you the concept. So the strategies specifically to decenter whiteness in the classroom. Today, at the end of this webinar, you may set up tools, which is the 85% rule. And you'll think, okay, I got it. I have representation, I'm fine. Really, this is actually the first step that I'm offering. The strategy includes an emphasizing and highlighting Black, Indigenous, BIPOC intentions. Right now, the numbers are drastically skewed, whereas the Black, BIPOC do not have they do not have libraries, they do not have representations, they don't have enough toys, they don't have representations in the school or in the classrooms, in the cottages, in the dorms. They do not have enough representations, and we need to make those numbers higher so that it is equitable to their white peers. We want to be able to have the students see images of themselves out there. It may seem redundant, but I want to make sure this is very clear. In regards to access within the classroom, Indigenous, Black, Asian, Latinx, they do not have access in the schools. They do not have access in the curriculum, images of themselves. They do not see themselves. They don't see their communities represented. They do not see their families represented. They don't see their world. It's missing. And white children also don't have access to those images. And the impact impacts both groups. These are the strategies, but I want to encourage three important things. I'm hoping that you'll be able to reduce harm in the classroom. And I use the word harm, racial harm and harm. I use them interchangeably with microaggression. The concept microaggression sounds like, we don't have a name for that experience, and now we currently have that. In the past, we have not. But that word microaggression, that word micro does not fit with this experience. Racial harm is not micro. Cumulatively, it has caused severe impact. to the students' learning. And when we want to reduce that harm, we want you to be thoughtful and be knowledgeable about your choices. And I want you to reflect while you're making those choices, and then reflect after instruction, thinking about maybe there's things that you might want to swap out, things you want to change out, thinking about the signages and not just think about, well, that's it, I'm done, but continue to make that reflective decision. How do we create that access? We need to recognize and emphasize and highlight and celebrate images of Indigenous, Black, Latinx, Asian, and Pacific Islanders, and other people of color. I need to overemphasize this. We need to recognize. We need to highlight. Let me back up a little bit. So as you see here, the image, it says yellow zone. This is part of the SEL curriculum for the ECE students here. We have 4 different zones, and this is one of the zones that I took a picture of. And do you see here how it represents the BIPOC people? We don't just have 3 white images or characters and just 1 Black individual, but we want to make sure that, wow, we have an opportunity for students to see pictures of BIPOC people. And the kids can feel like, oh, I'm represented. I'm represented. And we want the white children to be able to see other BIPOC people because they have seen images of themselves. So think about the white child's experiences. They have a lot of materials every year within the classroom that emphasize whiteness. What do you think that white child is learning? Is that what you want for your students? For your children? Okay, the 85% rule. That's a strategy to decenter whiteness. And I broke them down in the ECE classroom. So we have different areas. We have the dollhouse, we have the doll area, we have the dramatic play, and we have a variety of curriculum information it's posted on the wall. We have sign language posted on the wall, and we have different areas in the ECE classroom that I'll point out in each area, and ways to think about and how we can decenter whiteness and increase representation of BIPOC students and people. So this is why we have the 85% rule. I want you to think about, on your walls, all the images and the signage. What percent are brown? All shades of brown. Tan, medium brown, dark brown. It's very important that we have 85% of images on your walls to be represented, to represent brown people. still having 15% white, we're not trying to erase white children or white people. But also do remember that white children do have so much access. Every time they look up, they see themselves. They have always seen themselves. The classrooms can be a very special place for children so that they can have a different experience. I want to make sure that you have 85% of brown people in images posted in the classroom. About 25 to 50% have darker skin. And make sure that it's not light or light tan or light brown represented. But we want to make sure that we include darker brown skin. Also, 25% have textured hair as well. And it's okay to set up, not everywhere, of course, but if you have a corner, SEL corner for a child that needs to take self-care, then it's okay that of all the pictures and the feelings, and I know that all of you have that, the feeling chart for that corner, that if they're all black or if they're all brown, and it's okay. I'm not telling you why. I'm just telling you that it's okay. But I'm just wondering, maybe you can tell me why you think that that would be okay. I think some of you will know. Books. Wow, this is very important, right? So, in bilingual education, deaf children need to read and write English, and that is the main focus. All of our children, hearing and deaf, uh, it doesn't matter their disability, we want them to focus on literacy, to know how to read and write. And my thoughts are, for a deaf child, it's even more important so that they have access to English through writing. Books and using books in the classroom is very important. What kinds of books should you choose? Think of the people that you want to represent, people you want to highlight in your book, which is important in the classroom. It's important that all the books have BIPOC people shown. And those books should have at least 80% BIPOC, Indigenous, and other people of color. 85% of pictures or 85% of the characters. And again, if you want to do 100% of the characters that are Black or 100% Indigenous or Asian, Pacific Islander, which is fine, but make sure that we do not just choose books to erase the BIPOC students and creating that white privilege. So the 85% rule doesn't mean that you have 15% books that are all white-centered books. We want you to actually get rid of books that only have white characters in the classroom. Choosing books should include people from the real world. If you choose a book, maybe if it's an Asian character, for example, don't pick a book that's about, the Chinese New Year. I understand if you want to teach about Chinese New Year, that of course that would be appropriate to use that book, but just any storytelling time. And if you want to focus on the story, let's focus on the story. Maybe like we have on the example, this image of a mother and a child. We're not talking about Kwanzaa because it's BIPOC experience. We want to talk about real everyday life, stories that children would listen to. If the clothes, are mentioned, of course, if it's related to a country or a traditional dress, which is appropriate if it's the topic of that day, but it should be just a regular book about clothes and not specific to the culture or clothes that people in that group typically would wear on a daily basis. And it's come up a couple times here, which has been great. Questions to think about. Many of the white teachers are becoming more aware and starting to realize, oh, maybe I should back off and let a Black person tell the story because it has Black characters. I should hand that off to them and let them do with the storytelling. So my answer is yes and no. I do agree that it's very important for children to have Black people do storytelling for them. But at the same time, it is okay to have a white teacher do storytelling in regards to a Black family, because most storytelling is for your class and it's for your students. So mostly it's you are telling the story. And if you happen to be white, maybe you can use that opportunity to show the student that you do cherish Black people, that you're interested in Black people, that you're fascinated. Well, maybe not the word fascinated, uh, that you're giving importance to the BIPOC community, that you are interested, that you recognize them. So that is important for a white teacher to do storytelling. So if a white teacher is telling a story about Black people, and at the same time, I think it's important that the student see a Black storyteller as well. So if you do not have one in your department or within your classroom, maybe your campus, maybe they may not have enough teachers that are represented. Maybe you can use films. CSD has a lot of books because we have a lot of storytellers. We actually have one teacher here um, that has done a lot of work and it's great. Noelle Wilder started a project. She has recorded endless stories for you to check out at the library. It's online that you can check out, and you can see a variety of stories being told. And a lot have had this experience watching Noelle do storytelling. And she has also been recruited. I think probably all of the BIPOC people on this campus have invited her to come and sign with her. So I think that is also a great opportunity to have a deaf Black or deaf BIPOC individuals. So I encourage you to seek out storytellers, especially online as well. And also you can invite other teachers to your classroom, maybe even family members of your student to the classroom, or even high school students from your school. If you do not have enough BIPOC people that are represented or Black people represented in your classrooms or in your department, try to find people around to take on that role. Okay, this is a quiz. So what's the message here? What are the message that the students are getting? Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. This book is for young children. I think it emphasizes, I think, well, no, not counting, animals, of course, because I have another, there's a one in another series. So the child is reading a book, and within the stories, they have somebody signing, and at the very end, they have a dictionary. So suppose a black deaf child chooses this book and starts reading it. I mean, of course, the message is about animals and penguins and moose, and but what is the other message that the child is receiving? Wow. Was this your intent? I mean, you chose that book. Was that your intent? Did you want the child to feel, wow, I'm not being acknowledged. I'm invisible. I'm not that important. Oh, okay. Books are only for white people, not for me. It's not for my people. The message is, oh, ASL is for white people, not for me. Oh, my teacher doesn't like books about people like me. They prefer books about white people. So I want you to think about the message that you're sending to your students. Your, your students experience, they're experiencing erasure in all types of environments. And as I said before, that experience of erasure is in toy stores, it's in the mall, they watch TV, Disney movies. I know that recently it's become a little bit more popular, and they're integrating BIPOC individuals, but there are so many movies that are white centered, that are anti-Black. Lego table. So your Lego table. I know Legos. I mean, it's probably in the past that wasn't as I diverse, but some of the Lego people actually have yellow heads. So the yellow head, we want to make sure that that's in that 15% because the yellow heads don't really emphasize Black or brown people. When I look at that bright yellow head, I feel like it's creating an image of white people. So I want your Lego heads to be 85% of those heads to be tan, brown, and dark brown. You notice that the Legos tend to have the 85%, or if you have 90%, but then you start to see that, yeah, there's the white Legos are tending to show up in larger numbers. And some of those kids might be taking those heads home. Again, if all the Legos are brown, the heads are brown, it's fine. Again, I'll let you tell me the reason why. Barbies. Well, I have conflicting feelings about Barbies. Of course, Barbie represents um not a real body. And at the same time, it has gotten better. There are definitely a variety of representations of Barbie dolls. Some Barbies are diverse in body size and style and types. And it's a great opportunity to represent BIPOC individuals. I actually brought a few of my favorite Barbies with me today. So these are two Barbies that I had bought. And you can see two pictures of the students here. It says AJ, and they're actually twins, former students of mine. But they wanted to have dolls that represented them. And I thought, hey, obviously it doesn't look exactly like them, but it looks like they could identify as they resemble. Also, I actually have another doll. So if you notice the hair, which is pretty nice. He's got a nice face. So understanding what the dolls that you can find that have that type of hair to be represented. It's not very often. I mean, possibly none. That's why I actually like Barbies. So you can pick and choose. There's actually a lot of diversity with these Barbies. I bought these dolls for a theme that was related. Jabari jumps. And this is a very cool book. I'll talk about the book later. So as I mentioned a little bit before, if your classroom doesn't have enough Black adults, or your department or your school may not have enough Black adults represented, or have enough, oh, I don't know what happened to my PowerPoint. Hmm. Uh, Technical difficulties here. I apologize for that. Let me go call my IT guy. Give me just a moment. Sorry about that. Okay, so IT is on their way to support me, but I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit of the ECE tips and different activities that I enjoy. These are foolproof activities. So for the ECE teachers, do you have the boxes? Oh, hold on just a moment. IT person is here. Oh, huh. I guess I was signing too long. It reminds me to not talk so much. Okay, all right. Okay, this is just a quick review for all of you. Okay, so I'm gonna just briefly go into this box here. Um, so it's never old. Children 2 or 3 years old will always love the box. You can put things inside this box. Where did he go? What's inside? Oh, I saw something. Guess what I saw? So it's encouraging their attention, and you will actually take turns communicating and having a dialogue. Okay, all right. So let me get back on topic. So I think I've already discussed this a bit, but you can invite Black and BIPOC individuals on campus from different parts of your school or high school. Understanding that when you invite someone, do not make the recommendation. Do not ask a Black person during, the month of February because it's Black History Month. I mean, it's fine to invite individuals during Black History Month, but it should be happening throughout the school year. Don't just invite family members for specifically Black History Month or during Kwanzaa. Now, if that person wants to present on a particular topic during those events, that's fine. But oh, well, I know a Black family member. I'm going to invite them during Black History Month. I don't think that would be appropriate, but invite them to come and read to the kids. Invite them to work the centers with the kids, the art center, and during snack time and field trips. And if you invite a high school student, the same applies as well. Focus on the person first. And it's cool to invite family members of your students to the classroom. So if the person has an idea what they would like to share with the class, encourage that. Do not try to control how they participate in the classroom. I know that some of us teachers can be a bit controlling, and I know that it'll impact the day to have somebody else involved in the classroom, but it's still worth the experience for the students. Police. It's not, we don't have police centers in the classroom, but I want to do emphasize that we do not use police as community helpers as a theme. Mhm. I see that we're approaching 1 o'clock, so I'm going to try and wrap this up. So don't use police as a community helper. Don't provide police cars for play. Don't provide police clothing for them to dress up as police officers. Your community, your community scene with, the post office and hospitals. Let's not emphasize incorporating the police or police cars or yes, police may support some communities, but in other aspects, the police have caused historic trauma for other members of the community. And it's not appropriate for play when other kids might see this, or maybe other adults, BIPOC adults, Black adults, that may come into the classroom. They should not have to see this. Oh, we're just playing around. We're arresting this kid. We're putting him to jail. That is not something that should be encouraged. It's not a funny matter. Let me back up. There's one thing to consider. Some people have mentioned this in my department. Um, Not playing as police, but if you have children that have no language access at home, deaf children that may not have access to language at home, maybe they live with maybe they have a hearing family, maybe there needs to be a plan on how you introduce vocabulary. I'm not telling you um, to teach Black children about police. That is not your role as teachers. If you really need to have world knowledge. I think that that's something that you need to reach out to the family to find out what you need to do, or bring in a Black adult, because that's not something that is not your responsibility, and you have no idea what you should be saying to that particular family because it may be a serious issue. Us as Black moms, um, this is an issue in regards to our children. We think about it constantly on a daily basis. For you to share that, each child and each family has their own plan. They have their own perspective on how they want to share that information with their child. If there is a conflict, if maybe that family is unable to sign or unable to communicate with their child, maybe there's ways to work together where you can choose a Black staff member to work with a Black family, or a Mexican family to work with a Mexican family, to work with a staff member, or if necessary, for ages 5 and ages under 3, those discussions, I don't know if they be needed, but that's an in-depth discussion. But that'll be a whole nother webinar in regards to that. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Finger spelling on the wall in the classroom. It should be 85% or more to have dark brown hands we've seen so many hands with white gloves signing, or or even with clowns, with white gloves. That is in the 15%. um Black and BIPOC individuals have not been represented. Art projects, we want to make sure that we have a wide range of skin tone for crayons, markers, and paint, that they're always available for your students. You don't want to say, okay, what if we have a self-portrait? Today that I'm bringing this particular crayon. We want to make sure that the students have this accessible to them on a daily basis. Also, making sure that they make the paper plates with the hair. And when they put the eyes, we want to make sure that things are available for the students, a variety of material to make textured hair. If you are unable to find it or try to figure out how to make textured hair, don't do the project. Dolls, very important. 85% or more should be shades of brown. I'm sorry, I have to run through this because I want to make sure that I touch all the areas. Making sure that all the skins are represented. Making sure that you have an Asian doll and an East Indian doll as well that's represented. And it's also important that the dolls will match up, and that at a minimum that each child has a doll that matches up with their background, so they feel that they are being represented. For name cards, for circle time in the morning, who's here, and we put up the name. We want to make sure that it's important that we use brown or tan finger spelling. We do not need to match their skin color with the student. That is not required. Pick just all tan or all brown for all the students, or use a variety of skin tones in different situations. You do not want to match up skin tones to that student, because maybe that child's perception of his skin color may be a different perception of your perception of his skin color. Maybe that child in that community may have a strong awareness of skin color. So you choosing that skin color may not be appropriate. I'm sorry, I'm listening to the interpreter and I'm just lost my train of thought. So you choosing the skin color and the awareness of the skin color may not be the same as the student's awareness of his community's awareness. Also, the skin color is a very sensitive issue for Black people. So do not try to match up their skin colors. I do think that you should have every child's skin color represented in the classroom, but do not match up their name card to their skin color. That's what we're trying to avoid in the classroom. Dramatic play. We want representation from a variety of communities, including the foods that are eaten, utensils, plates, cups that they may use. What kind of cups would they use? Would they use chopsticks? Do they use spoons? We should have that in the dramatic play. 85% minimum is the expectation. It's a minimum. You can do a lot more than 85. And if you'd like to do that, that's fine. But the minimum is 85%. So I'm not sure if we have time for questions. Hello. I want to say thank you again for this wonderful presentation. I actually have one comment. The comment says, thank you, Laura. I'm really glad that you reminded the audience that it's okay for white folks to sign stories featuring BIPOC characters or illustrations. I think that some people are getting the impression that only BIPOC people can do that. Kids need to see all of us signing, supporting, and celebrating all of us. So that was a comment that was made. So again, I want to say thank you to all of you for coming and watching the webinar today. And as you've noticed, that we have a Black interpreter as well to support a Black presenter. And that is why that we made sure that she was viewed to make sure that we have representation. The CSD core webinar will be continued, and we will provide workshops in regards to this 85% rule. Next year in the 2024-2025 school year, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. If any thoughts or questions, you can email us anytime. Thank you and have a great afternoon. Oh, wait, hold on. I want to name an amazing champ interpreter. Her name is Jemiah. Jemiah, that's her sign name. Thank you, Jemiah, Germany. Thank you so much for supporting this presentation. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.